Hi, my name is Tom from Mark My Words, and I am going to tell you today all about the interesting things regarding Big Picture, which is one of the most prominent, most functional project management add-ons to Jira. So if you're working with Jira environment or Atlassian environment, or you're planning to be working with the Atlassian environment, you might be thinking about actually moving your project management into this environment as well. Why? That's a very good question. Thanks for asking. That's because if you are working with standard project management tools that are not connected with your tool that is handling your day-to-day activities, day-to-day work, then whenever you need to figure out what's the status of my project, you actually need to go around and ask people, hey, how are you doing with your tasks? What's the progress of your task? How much time do you think you need to finish whatever you're doing? Right, or you have to wait for the status meeting so that you can actually get the information from all the people about your project. But if you're working within the same environment that your teams are working in, so Jira in this case, and you have a project management tool that is sitting on top of it, that is reusing the same data, you actually have the single source of truth back, then in this case, whenever you need to have a look at where my project is at, all you need to do is to visit the tool and you will get the actual information every single time. So that is why having a project management tool in the Atlassian environment, in the Jira environment, if you're already using it as your process tool, as your development tool, as your backtracking tool, whatever is it that you're using Jira for, it makes a lot of sense. And out of all the tools for project management available in the Atlassian ecosystem, and there are quite a lot of them, BigPicture is definitely my favorite. And believe me, I've been doing this for more than 5 years now, working with introducing project management processes and tools to the companies that are working in the Atlassian ecosystem. And BigPicture is the best choice in most of the cases. So there are some other pretty good tools, but none of them is as flexible and as versatile as BigPicture is. So that's why this is my definite favorite. And that's why this is what we're going to have a closer look at during this video. So it's been some time since I've made an update of what BigPicture really is and what it can give you as a project manager, as a person who is managing people or resources, for example, in your project. So we're going to go through most of the interesting functionalities within BigPicture to help you understand how this tool can actually be useful to you. And the way we are going to tackle this is, first, I'm going to address all the areas that are relevant for the waterfall-based approach. Then I'm going to skip to the modules that are more useful in the Agile approach. And also bear in mind, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but also bear in mind that BigPicture is actually, I think, the only tool in the Atlassian ecosystem that allows you to very nicely connect both worlds. So if you're working a little bit Agile and a little bit waterfall, this is probably the best tool that you can find in the Atlassian ecosystem. All right, so having said that, we are going to kick off with the presentation. Just maybe before we start, remember that if you're interested in any kind of help regarding implementing or training from BigPicture or any other Atlassian tool that is connected with project management, then you will find the contact information to my company in the description of this video. All right, so let's talk about BigPicture then. When you install BigPicture, the dropdown here will appear in your Jira, and this dropdown is going to give you access to some of the basic features like a home view. So this is the view that we are looking at currently, and this is like your starting dashboard for BigPicture for your project management. This is the list of all your projects, maybe portfolios and projects grouped under those portfolios, depending on how you structure your portfolios, programs, whatever you call them, whatever your nomenclature is. So the list here can contain already quite a lot of information, and you can see that apart from the names and the dates, you can also get some basic info about what's the breakdown of the statuses of whatever is inside my project, right? So of course you're working on Jira issues, right? And whatever Jira issues are inside your project, you can get a nice breakdown of the progress in terms of statuses. You can also get an information about the time tracking. If you're using Jira estimates and reporting time in Jira, then the time tracking will bring very accurate information regarding the progress of your project. And then of course you also get the numbers over here that are showing you what is the sum of all the original estimates, remaining estimates, and time spent on the level of every single project. You can do some sorting, you can do some filtering, you can change the view, for example, to that timeline view, which is pretty nice, I think. There you go. You can see a nice info about where your projects are scheduled, which is overlapping, which, of course, I could also show the names of those projects. Why not? You also get the Kanban board view with statuses of your projects, not started, in progress, closed, right? Whatever is needed over here, you can basically get it. And the coolest thing, I think, is that anything you see here on the list is called a box in BigPicture. And boxes are quite flexible in terms of what they can show, how they can behave as well. So you can see that, let me find the right one. You can see, for example, that you can connect the boxes into hierarchies. So you can create, for example, a portfolio kind of view of your projects. Then under your portfolio, you can have the list of your projects. One of your projects might be broken down into even smaller parts, like program increments in my case. The program increments might be broken down into smaller parts, like iterations. So there is quite a lot of flexibility regarding how you can structure this. And of course, this is also one of the big things you need to figure out when you're implementing the tool and starting to work with it. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to dive into one of those projects. I will use my demo project that I'm mostly using during my training sessions. And in this demo project, I will go through all the modules and explain what each module is actually good for. So let's get right to it. When you go inside, first of all, you will see that we are in the context of my demo project. It took me directly to the Gantt, which was the last module I've been using over here. So that's why we are here. But we're actually going to start from the overview module, which is kind of similar to what we've seen before in the Home tab. So this is the breakdown of my project into smaller pieces in this case. So you can see that again, I have some program increments here for working in the Agile manner, but I also have the breakdown into quarters, for example, as an example to those of you that are working rather waterfall. So if you're working waterfall, you could break down your project into time periods, basically, and whether it's a quarter or whether it's a phase of the project, a stage of the project, it doesn't really matter. You can do this. That's what is the important part. Then if we skip into the Gantt, Gantt is, of course, one of the big selling points of BigPicture because Jira itself doesn't really have any kind of Gantt functionality, especially the data center version or server version of Jira. So Gantt is a really cool thing to have over here. And as you can see, the standard view that you get over here, it shouldn't be very surprising, especially for those of you that have been working with any kind of Gantt tool before. Because on the left side, we have a kind of like a table view of our data. By the way, the fields that we have over here, the columns, can be showing any kind of Jira data that is stored over there. On the right side, we have a Gantt chart with the placement of our tasks in time, with the dependencies that are connecting our tasks. And of course, all of that is coming straight from Jira. We are not cloning the data. We are not copying the data. We are reusing the same data that already exists in Jira, which is one of the coolest things of the tool. What are the most interesting things regarding the Gantt module? Well, first of all, it's quite easy to populate your work breakdown structure over here with creating tasks over here, creating subtasks over here. It's also possible to, as an initial start of your Gantt of your project, to import data from file or to clone one of the existing projects like a template that you might have and you will be reusing as a starting point for all the new projects that you start, right? You can also use period modes that allow you to control the behavior of the tasks or your project activities over here on the Gantt. So by behavior, I mean, sometimes the tickets might be connected to one another with dependencies. They might be put into the hierarchy, like over here, right? And with the period mode, you can define who is more important, for example, whether the children are influencing the parent or whether the parent is controlling the children. How are the tasks moving with one another when they are connected with dependencies? You can lock some activities in place, like, for example, milestones, so that they are not movable, right? So it gives you a lot of flexibility. One of my favorite things, so baselines, of course, baselines are here too. And if you know what a baseline is, good. If not, I'm not going to explain it here. But grouping tasks is really one of the coolest things you can have over here. So for example, you can group the tasks in my project plan by status, and right off the bat, I get a completely different view of my work breakdown structure. But this time it's grouped by statuses, and I can nicely see that, okay, in progress, I have 13 tasks that are currently being worked on. This is where they are. This is how they are placed in time. This is the summary of all of those tasks. So that's also pretty cool, right? So I really like the grouping functionality because it allows you with just a few clicks to have a completely different view at your project data. If you connect grouping with filtering, that is over here, so we can define some quick filters, you can use date filters, you can use text search filters. It's a really powerful tool to get the right information out of your project plan. Then, of course, you have some information, some settings actually, about the visibility of certain things. And I think one of the important things over here is to notice that there are overdue tasks over here. So if you click that, if you select that, all the overdue tasks, so the ones that should have been finished but are not finished yet, will be highlighted here. And you can see how many days they are late, which tasks there are. And of course, this is the information for you as a project manager to do something about it, right? You can also show the critical path. You can also show the progress on the bars. That's pretty cool as well. You can see, for example, that this task has a progress of a little bit less than 50%. This one is around 50%. This one is more than 50%, right? So that's a pretty cool information to have here on the bar as well. What else is important in a Gantt? There is on the right side, there is an info bar that allows you to quickly search for the most relevant information in your Gantt. So first of all, you can find tickets or your work items that are connected with certain types of dependencies. You can also easily find, again, the overdue tasks. So this is like a second place that allows you to do that, and they get listed over here immediately. You get a list of all your milestones, and just clicking on it, you can quickly get to that milestone and see where it's at in your project tree. You can also quickly find the items belonging to your critical path in the project. That might be important for some of you as well. So the info bar is again a pretty cool thing. Another interesting fact is that you can even have a glance at how your resources are being used within the project, right? So you have a list of people over here participating in your project activities. Here you get the info about how much time they are allocated in your project. And if someone is allocated for too much time, I will zoom in a little bit, you will actually get warnings, right? So everything that is red over here basically indicates that the person has more hours assigned to him or her than their capacity allows. And I should do something about it, right? If something is yellow or orange, it basically means that someone is not over the capacity, but is getting close to the full capacity, right? So that's like a kind of like a warning to me to be careful about assigning anything else to that person. So that's a very cool thing. Remember that we have a separate resource module that is giving me even more information regarding my resources as well. With BigTemplate plugin, which is necessary, you can also export the data. So if you want to do any kind of exporting or actually also importing from file, you will need the BigTemplate plugin. And the exports are pretty cool as well. It allows you to export to the most popular formats like CSV, PDF, Excel, even Microsoft Project formats, and XML if you would like to do that. And the exports are meaningful. They contain all the data that you have over here. So it's usually quite a smart thing to have. And one last thing I want to mention in the Gantt are the alternative scenarios. So over here, you can also switch to an alternative scenario that allows you to play around with your data without any cost of actually breaking things. So if you created an alternative scenario, it's like a what if scenario. What will happen if something changes, something gets moved in time, some task gets rescheduled, right? You can play around with some dates, move things around and see whether that works for you or not. If it does, then you can later on merge it with the live scenario. If it doesn't, then you can just discard it and get rid of it and forget about it. So that's a pretty cool thing to have over here too, right? So this is in a nutshell a Gantt chart. Very, very useful thing. Of course, you get a hierarchy of tasks over here. I already mentioned that. Of course, you get some dependencies on the Gantt. I already mentioned that as well. Lots of more things I could tell you about the Gantt, but we don't want to keep this video too long. So let's skip to the next module, that is the resources. And the resources module is another one that is very, very interesting for everyone that is working in the waterfall approach, right? Because this is where you will want to manage your resources person by person, possibly, not always, but possibly. And this is the place where you are able to do this. So a few cool things that you can get out of the resources module. First of all, you get the info about how your people are allocated with work, how much time the work is taking from them, how good the assignments are in terms of the capacity for every person. So I could actually turn on the visibility of the capacity. And then on the level of every person, I can see how much hours per day this person is available, how much time is assigned to that person, right? So if I, for example, see over here 8 hours highlighted in red, I might be wondering why. Why is it highlighted in red? Because a usual standard working day is 8 hours, right? But I can see that Agnes is actually working 7 hours on Monday, 5 hours on Tuesday, and then 8 hours throughout Wednesday to Friday. So that's why Monday and Tuesday are highlighted in red. BigPicture knows about it. And of course, it knows about it because we've implemented some configuration, we've inputted some data that actually tells BigPicture that Agnes is working in a non-standard way. What you can also see over here is the aggregation of this data by a week, for example, or even by a month, right? So for a monthly view, I probably need to zoom out to half a year view. And then you get this very cool information also with a monthly summary for every employee. So that might be quite useful to some of you as well. Another cool thing that is available over here is the switch to the team-based planning rather than individual-based planning in terms of resources. So it has its usefulness in two aspects. So first of all, sometimes you're first planning on the team level and then you're breaking the work down to the individual level. So for the long-term planning, for the rough planning, the teams over here will be very, very useful. And sometimes you're not planning on the individual level at all, and then you will only work with a team-based planning, which is completely fine as well. So this is why it's very, very good that we have this teams switch over here, and you can control your teams. Of course, register the teams. There is a separate module for registering teams. The teams can be inherited between boxes. You can have global teams that are being reused across the whole company and all the projects in your company. So quite a lot of functionality regarding those teams. And of course, those teams have members. Those members can be assigned to your project for a specific amount of their FTE, of their availability. So all the important settings are there. And one last important thing regarding the resource planning is a skill-based planning. So if you're using skills in your organization and you want to figure out how much skills are necessary for my project and whether I have enough resources to actually provide those skills to my project, this is what a skill-based planning is for. So if you turn on the skill-based planning, another small window appears over here. You can make it smaller or bigger, and this is basically where you can manage the time based on skills, right? In our case, we are looking at those skills per team, but of course you can be looking at those skills per individual as well. So these are the basics for the resources. Now, some of the cool things that you can also find over here is that, first of all, right now we are looking at the assignment within the project, within our demo project that we're looking at. But with BigPicture Enterprise, you have also this switch over here that allows you to show the overall assignment. By the way, BigPicture Enterprise is like a separate add-on, so it brings in some very cool features to standard BigPicture, and if you want to use these features, you will need to buy both plugins. So this one is available only with BigPicture Enterprise, and what this does is if you have it selected, then it's showing you tasks assigned to a person if you're looking at individuals, or teams if you're looking at teams, coming from all the other projects as well, right? Which allows you to have the full view regarding the availability of your teams or individuals. So for example, this task over here, I know because it's semi-transparent, is coming from a different project, right? So that's why you can see that if I turn this one off, this task will disappear. So it's coming from a different project, and of course it's contributing to the hours that this team is allocated to. One more thing that I want to mention is that on the level of any task that you have over here, you can also, okay, on this one I can't. So let's use this one. You can also control how the work is being distributed, so how the estimates are being distributed across the whole duration of the task. So the default setting is flat, which means that the estimates are being evenly divided for the whole duration of the task. But you can also make it front-loaded, you can make it back-loaded. So front-loaded, of course, means that as much work as possible, in terms of available capacity, of course, will be assigned to the beginning of the task. And then possibly at the end of the task, you will have 0 hours allocated. So this is like kind of a buffer then at the end of the task. But there is also a manual mode available over here, again with BigPicture Enterprise, that allows you to manually decide how much time is going to be assigned per day. So this is sometimes useful for some of my customers I'm working with, because they need a lot of flexibility in terms of assigning tasks to people and controlling how much time they are spending on those tasks daily, right? So with this feature, you can say that someone is working on a task 5 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Tuesday, 7 hours on Wednesday, 8 hours on Thursday, and 1 hour on Friday, right? It's possible, it's manual. Very, very cool thing to have. And of course, you have filters over here, so you can also filter your task. You have export available over here, so you can export it into, well, most of the time you would probably export it to Excel, but you can also use the PDF export, which is an image basically export over here. To top it all off, remember that resources are very closely connected with some administration settings of your risk or of your people, right? Regarding workload plans, holiday plans, absences, right? So you can manage absences over here and register when people are not available. And of course, all of that is influencing how the data is being visualized and captured over here. So of course, if someone is unavailable because he or she has holidays registered, then on those days, their capacity will be 0. On those days, BigPicture will not schedule any work assigned to that people. So it's all taken into account and works very, very nicely. One last thing that I will mention in terms of the waterfall-based approach is a risk module. So risk module allows you to capture and control risks in your project. You have basically 2 views over here. This one is a matrix view. Let me actually turn on the compact mode, then it will be a little bit more visible. So this is the matrix view with probability on the left axis and consequence here at the top. And whatever you have in this matrix is basically a risk with the indication of both consequence and probability values, right? So this corner will have all the risks that are trivial and almost none in terms of consequence and probability. The opposite corner, of course, will hold the risks that are the most dangerous for our company. And this is also what the heat mode is for. So this corner will be kind of greenish, this will be kind of reddish. If you prefer to look at the data in the table view, then it's also available over here. And you can actually hide one or the other if you prefer to stick with one only. Basically, managing the risks over here is super easy. So first of all, there is a very cool feature. So let me turn off actually the compact mode. So there's a very cool feature of actually highlighting the risk like that and putting it on a full screen, which can be very useful for kind of like a risk review meetings. So with this, you can talk about each and every one of those risks, toggle between one and the other. You can even fill in the data over here, right? So if from this level I want to apply the risk reserve budget to this risk, I can do this like that. I can also move the risks from one matrix window or cell to another to, of course, change the probability and consequence values for that risk with a simple drag and drop. And to top it all off, everything that you see here basically is controlled by risk card views. So all the data that are visible here are controllable. If you want to display something else over here, you can. So you can switch to a different view of the card, and you can, of course, also configure which Jira fields basically are available on those risks, because all your risks are Jira tickets, Jira issues. So you have a big degree of control over what's being shown or displayed over here. Again, the exporting, again, the quick filtering, or actually filtering, is available here too. The calendar, I'm actually going to leave this one without a lot of comment, because this is still in the alpha version. Not a lot is available over here, and basically this module is to help you figure out what is currently happening in your project on any given day. So you can see that upcoming tasks are divided into today, tomorrow, and the following dates. Here in the calendar view, you also get the breakdown of what is planned for each and every day in your project and who these tasks are assigned to. But we will quickly skip the calendar and jump to the reports. And reports allow you to control some of the information that maybe are not that easily available from other modules. So reports are basically based on a group by functionality. So they are grouping your data by certain Jira elements. Basically, all fields that you have in Jira can be used as a group by option. So you can group by the status, you can group by assignee, you can group by issue types, you can group by fixed versions, and basically any other fields that you have over here. And these reports are based on that group by functionality, and they can have up to 4 levels of depth. So you can kind of group by one parameter, then underneath you can group it by a second parameter, a third parameter, fourth parameter, and drill down into your report to see the breakdown of data all the way to the last 4th level. If you want to, of course, you don't have to use all the 4 levels at the same time. All the pre-configured reports are available for you over here from the get-go. So this is the high five that you will get if you don't have the BigPicture Enterprise. With BigPicture Enterprise, you will be able to hit this edit button and you will be able to create some more reports or edit the existing ones. Basically, if this reporting is not enough for you, first of all, remember that Gantt chart or the board that we haven't visited yet already have some meaningful data available to you. But if that is not enough, remember that Jira has dashboards, so you can always go to Jira dashboards and use the gadgets available in Jira. Also gadgets that BigPicture is bringing. It's bringing actually 3 gadgets that you can reuse on your dashboards to have some more meaningful breakdowns of your data. If that is not enough, you will have to go into some additional reporting tools that are also available in the Atlassian ecosystem. All right, so that would more or less conclude the waterfall-based approach. Now, if you are more like an agile guy and you want to, or girl, sorry, and you want to be working with in a more flexible environment, so the agile environment, you will probably be looking into a different set of modules. So from your perspective, the roadmap, the board, and the scope will be the most interesting ones. So the roadmap, that's the first one we will visit, is basically the tool that allows you to do the objective-based planning. So this is where, first of all, you get the breakdown of your project into, I will call them time boxes, because in different methodologies, these can be this can be used in a different way. So I have a breakdown of program increments, and underneath my program increments, I have iterations, which is basically the breakdown that is being used in a SAFe approach, so scaled agile framework methodology. But this is not something you have to use. You can use just sprints, for example, right? Or you can use any other time-based period that will be meaningful to you. And what this module allows you to do is it allows you to define objectives or goals for that time period, either general goals for the whole project or goals per given team. So you can work on many different levels, so either general or the team-based level. And these goals are basically text goals. But if you don't want to use just text, You can also define those goals as Jira issues, Jira tickets. That's possible too. And then, of course, you can mark whether the goal, the objective has been achieved or hasn't been achieved, whether it's been failed or abandoned. You can also score your objectives, first as a planned business value with some numbers, then as an achieved business value, again with some numbers, to kind of get the idea of whether you were able to meet the plans or the objectives or the expectations from the beginning at the end of your time box or not. And I think that in general, this tool can also be very, very useful for those of you that are even not working Agile, are working waterfall, because objective-based planning is not limited to the Agile approach, is it, right? Basically, if you want to manage your project in any other way than micromanagement, then I think that this tool might be the right place to visit and at least give it a thought and figure out whether you want to use it or not. So when your objectives are defined, when your goals are defined, you want to get you want to be a little bit more specific, right? So then you get down to actually planning the work that is going to have to be completed within those time boxes to deliver the objectives that you planned over here, right? So this is what the scope module is pretty good for. This is a very good place to actually plan the work that needs to happen at some point. Let me turn this one off. And as you can see, it's more or less like a left side of the Gantt without the Gantt chart. So there's a nice column view of all the data. We can call it a backlog of everything that is waiting for you in your project. This backlog can be also built into a hierarchy. So it's possible to have a hierarchy here, and it's actually the same kind of hierarchy that you have on the Gantt module. And of course, you can also control all the data that is being displayed over here. So if you want to work with standard estimates, you can get standard estimates. If you want to work with story points, you can work with story points. And for story points, the inline editing is also available over here. That is pretty convenient. On top of this, on the data center or server version, you can also turn on the detailed view. It's actually not available in the cloud version. So there are very few differences between cloud and data center version of BigPicture, and this is one of them. So you can't have this view in a cloud version, but this is a pretty cool view that allows you to load the standard Jira screen on the right side of every ticket that you select over here, which is very cool because this area basically allows you to edit almost everything, right? So you can see that I can edit the priority, the versions, the components, basically any field that I want from this screen. So if you want to group the data, it's very smart to have it listed over here, go through this data one by one, through this tickets one by one, and change the data. Unless you want to change something that is a text or numerical fields, then it's also super easy to edit it from here. You just double click on those fields and you can easily modify the text or the numbers, like story points, for example, from this view, from this level as well. All right, so I think this is more or less all in terms of scope. It's a really pretty easy to navigate, pretty easy to understand module in BigPicture. But the one that is a little bit more complicated is definitely the board. And the board is a little bit more complicated, but also has a lot more functionalities, of course. So when we have a look at the board, let me zoom out a little bit from this view. So when we have a look at the board, we will see that it gives us a view that is a little bit similar to what the Jira boards are providing, in Jira software, of course, right? So from this view, there are some differences, of course, and basically this view, one of the biggest things that it provides in terms of, or on top of what Jira does, is that it allows you to view at the data across multiple teams working on the same releases, right? So if you're managing a bigger project that is going according to the Agile principles, and you have many teams working on that project, then this board module of BigPicture will really come of help. Because over here you can, first of all, filter the data by several time boxes, and you can stack them with two different layers. So you can have top level time boxes and lower level time boxes. The ones you can see over here are again coming from the SAFe methodology. So I have program increments at the top, and I have then iterations below my program increments. So you can see that this PI1 has iteration 1, 2, and 3. And then inside my iterations, I have the breakdown for teams. So you can see astronauts, software, space engineering, and so on. I also have other teams over there. And each one of those teams has tasks assigned to that team within the iteration that we can see here at the top, right? So for iteration 1, space engineers, they have these elements assigned to them, right? In iteration 2, they have these. In iteration 3, they have these. Another team, Android, has these elements. Right? I can see dependencies over here, and actually you can see quite a lot of them because I have both links turned on, both categories of links turned on. But if I get rid of the ones that are coming from the Gantt chart, then I'm left actually with one, which basically says that this task requires this one to be completed first, right? So this is a very important information about the dependency for me, allowing me to understand that I have to structure my work in a proper way so that the job will be done. You also get some nice summaries over here. With this summary, we're actually looking at capacity allocation. So this one is used for planning, right? When you're planning, you're interested in how much time has already been allocated from the time available. So this is the capacity allocation, but you can also change it to the work progress, and then you're measuring how much of work has actually been completed, either in terms of tasks completed or in terms of story points that have already been done, completed. So a pretty good summaries. They are actually called totals over here. On the right side, you also have your backlog available. So planning things from here is actually super cool too, and very easy. So you just grab things, drop them in the proper box, they appear here. And on top of that, this is a really cool thing, guys. On top of that, you also can synchronize this with standard Jira boards, okay? So even if your team is already working with a Jira board, it doesn't mean that you have to scratch everything and start from the beginning. You can synchronize with the existing Jira board, and the synchronization works both ways. So if your team is working on a board and they update something on the board, for example, mark the task as resolved, it will get resolved over here as well. If you do some changes over here in terms of planning, and you, for example, say that this task will actually be happening in iteration 3, not iteration 2, then it will also get synchronized with the Jira board of space engineers. And over there, their task will get rescheduled as well. So that's a very cool feature, one of the most advanced, to be honest, but it really helps a lot. And on top of all of that, for those of you that would be working in the mixed approach, a little bit agile, a little bit waterfall, BigPicture has something for you too. Actually quite a lot. But one of the coolest features connected strictly here with the board module is that you can say that certain time boxes can align their tasks according to their duration. So that will mean that if you drag a task from here to the certain box, then this task will spread its duration for the duration of the whole box, which means that on the Gantt, you will see this task automatically placed in the right time frame, I guess, right? So you won't have to schedule those tasks in two places, separately here on the board and separately on the Gantt to have a Gantt view as well. It will actually happen automatically for you. I really love that feature. I can probably hear that. Anyway, this is, of course, there is more here. So there is capacity planning that allows you to define capacities of your team. There is exporting functionality. There are some additional features regarding the view and how to manage what you can see over here. You can change the visibility of those task cards. So if you want to modify what information is visible on the card over here, that's achievable as well. So a lot of cool things still available over here, but of course this is just an overview and we are not going to go into the details of everything. So this basically concludes what I wanted to show you today. A very, very flexible tool. You have to be aware of the fact that this tool is in its depth and in what it offers, it's quite complicated. Okay, so you can use it in a very simple way, sure, but if you know how to use it properly, if you are trained or if you train yourself and discover all the cool features that it has to offer, this really is something that can aspire to be a true project management tool in the Atlassian environment. It's, I'm not going to say that it's as good as Microsoft Project. Microsoft Project is a grandfather of all the project management tools, so don't expect this one to be as good as Microsoft Project. But even though it's missing some of the features that, for maybe some of you are very essential from the Microsoft Project point of view, it, in addition to what it misses, it fills that hole with additional capabilities that are awaiting you when you start using the tool that is connected seamlessly with the task management tool or workflow management tool that Jira is. So when you're working in the same environment that people in your project are working in as well, then of course you get a lot of additional benefits like the immediate reporting, immediate access to all the necessary data, ability to plan your resources more accurately, ability to follow the planning and the execution more closely, right? So it's not disconnected anymore. Project planning is not disconnected anymore from project execution. It's actually exactly the same thing, the same environment, the same data. And this is one of the best things about working with projects inside the Jira or inside the Atlassian environment. So I'm going to leave you with that thought at the very end. If you feel that this is a tool that could be useful for you, this is the tool that you want to explore more, and you think that the professional help might really be of value to you, then absolutely please do reach out to us. You will find our contact info in the description of this video, so please have a look over there. You can check out our webpage and see what we have to offer. We basically do the live training for BigPicture. We help with implementing BigPicture in your organization. We even have the video training, which covers all of the functionalities of the BigPicture, which you can buy for the fraction of the cost of the live training. So if you're looking to save some money, this is probably the best option for you. And we are the only ones in the market that can offer you that. So I'm hoping that you will, first of all, find the right tool for you, because maybe this is not the one. But if you start using BigPicture, I'm also hoping that you will achieve all your project planning goals that you have in mind. Thanks a lot for watching and listening, and have a great day.